Hello everyone. Continuing from the last time, let's consider thermal power generation today. The thermal power generation is at the center of Japan's power generation, but in recent years, it has been completely demonized because it burns fossil fuels and thus emits CO2. Meanwhile, as renewable energy sources increase in the future, the need for the thermal power's ability to adjust to fill the gap of intermittent solar and wind power is rather increasing. Nevertheless, we must be careful about the security of fuel supply as we are 100% dependent on imports. And after all, CO2 emissions must be reduced. Therefore, it is necessary to seriously consider making better use of thermal power for future power generation. According to the Japanese government's target, by 2030, the dependence on thermal power will be reduced to 40%, which is almost half of the current level. On top of that, CO2 emissions from the remaining 40% of thermal power must be reduced. In today's energy talk, we will study measures to reduce CO2 emissions from thermal power generation. The measures can be divided into two main categories. First is to switch to fuels that do not emit carbon dioxide. In the previous energy talk, I explained that CO2 emissions are highest from coal-fired, oil-fired, and LNG-fired power generation in that order. Therefore, replacing all of these with LNG-fired power would reduce CO2 emissions, but a much larger transition is needed to achieve net zero emissions. This is where ammonia and hydrogen are showing great promise. Both do not generate CO2 when burned. Therefore, the net zero emission can be achieved by burning ammonia and hydrogen instead of coal, oil, and LNG for thermal power generation. Demonstration experiments have already begun in Japan, in which ammonia is mixed with a portion of the fuel. In addition, a development of turbines that can generate electricity by mixing hydrogen with coal and other fossil fuels has begun. The plan is to gradually increase the ratio of both ammonia and then hydrogen mixed with fossil fuels, eventually converting to 100% ammonia burning and 100% hydrogen burning thermal power generation. However, there are major challenges. First, ammonia is widely used as a fertilizer, but the current production method requires high temperature and high pressure that consume large amounts of energy. Nitrogen and then hydrogen are the raw materials, but hydrogen is produced exclusively from oil and gas in Japan, and CO2 is generated in that process. Hydrogen can also be produced by electrolysis, in which electricity is passed through water, but electricity used must be from a non-fossil power source, so-called green hydrogen, should be used. However, as you know, Japan does not have an abundance of non-fossil power sources. We do not have enough electricity for hydrogen production. Therefore, the most promising solution is to import ammonia and hydrogen produced overseas, where green electricity can be generated in large quantities. But there are many issues to be solved, including transportation costs. Another solution is carbon capture and storage, CCS, in which CO2 generated by thermal power plants is captured and stored underground in a stable manner. There is also carbon capture usage, which utilizes the captured CO2. However, the problem is the storage location. In Japan, it is not easy to find a cost-effective storage site. In this case, CO2 could be transported and stored overseas. But again, of course, the cost would be higher. As mentioned above, both fuel conversion to ammonia and hydrogen and CCS have many challenges to be solved and will take time to establish. However, if these solutions are found, there is a great advantage in that existing thermal power generation can continue to be preserved. Japan has a superior thermal efficiency technologies compared to other countries. For example, it is estimated that if Japan's most efficient technology, USC, ultra super critical power, were to be introduced to coal-fired power plants in China, India, and the United States, the annual reduction in CO2 emission would be 1.2 billion tons, which is equivalent to Japan's annual CO2 emissions. Now is the time for wisdom and ingenuity to ensure that thermal power generation is not retired and that it can continue to be used effectively in the future. Stay curious about energy. Thank you very much.